Hey, what's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music. I'm hanging out with Brian Vance of D'Addario Strings. I wanted to make this video to settle the age-old debate. Do heavier gauge strings give you better tone? And I am asking the premier expert on guitar strings, Brian Vance of D'Addario. Who else could I possibly think of to get this answer? We're actually at D'Addario headquarters, which is the offices and the amazing factory where I got to watch a string being made from the beginning to the end. And I never realized how that process is. There's a lot to making a string.
That's just a piece of wire.
No, it was really, really impressive. So I've been using these recently. They've been great. I love them. I'm normally a tens guy on my electric guitars. What kind of gauge do you like on electric guitar?
It depends on the guitar. I'll use 10s on a Strat usually, but then I might go to a 10.5 or an 11 on a Les Paul or a 335 or something like that.
Shorter scale neck.
Shorter scale, a little less tension, so the string kind of, a heavier gauge string kind of compensates for that a little bit. Just so when you bend, it feels more kind of normal, more comfortable between the two guitars.
Do you think thicker strings, heavier gauge strings are louder?
It depends on the guitar. You could take this guitar with unamplified and put a set of 9s on there and just, or you've got 10s on here.
We got 10s on here.
You kind of play them out and we can try it again. Why don't we do that later?
Yeah.
And let's put a set of 11s or 12s on here and string it.
Okay, I'm making a mental, I'm storing this in the mental box there.
Yeah.
What that feels like, how much it's vibrating.
Yep.
You know?
That's a big
So
part
gauge will affect
absolutely
that
the
vibration.
whole ecosystem of the instrument, right? Not just the
Right.
pickup or not just what they're tuned to. I mean,
Right.
the string gauge affects all of that.
Do you think just through trial and error of the history of guitar, 10s kind of averaged off as the most popular?
It's changed over time too, and it's also different sometimes by region of the world. So
Okay.
internationally, people, for whatever reason, play lighter gauge strings a lot of times. Demographically, sometimes younger people in order play lighter gauge strings, and as they develop their strength and calluses, and they'll tend to go heavier. Used to be probably 20 or more years ago, more people played 9s than 10s.
Huh.
So probably the last 20 years, it's migrated more towards 10s. And now we start to see 9s become more popular as new players come in the market like we've never seen before right now. So it's kind of interesting. It's never steady the same.
And then I was talking with you guys off camera about Tony Iommi. He uses really light gauge and he plays super heavy music.
Yep.
So what do you think about that? Like how is that working?
I mean, Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page and Billy Gibbons and lots of people that play just rock and roll guitar or heavy stuff with lighter gauge strings. I always wondered if that had anything to do with tone or if it had to do more with feel.
Yeah.
Like comfort playing or how fast they could play or how easy they could bend. And the tone was more of a byproduct of that. I don't know why particularly they use those strings, but there's no right or wrong. You know,
Right.
everybody, every person, you have great players who can get great tone out of a 9s, 10s, 11s, depending on what's in their hands and what the guitar does for them, you know? So it really is a personal, individual thing.
All right, well, these are the 10 through 46.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna just put it through the paces a little bit
Yeah.
so we can, document that.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about the next one.
Okay, sounds cool.
Well, I just finished restringing it, and just even the restringing process, they feel heavier. They do. I really felt
See a
it.
difference.
like the tension, especially on that low E, is way tighter.
Yeah,
Way
for sure.
tighter. So what? Tell me about like maybe the concept of where heavier strings gives you better tone. Where does that come from?
I think mostly it's acoustical. So
Okay.
like for, if it's more stems from an acoustic instrument, there's more mass to the string, even, there's more tension, but there's more mass, and it makes the guitar work harder, it resonates more. You also, to me, with heavier strings or a little heavier strings, there's more definition between the notes. The lighter the strings are, when you're kind of strumming, they can sort of get clanky and kind of mixed up and messy together.
Yeah.
But the heavier gauge you go, you get more clarity and differentiation between the notes as you strum and pick. Like I can even hear it from here from the speaker. When you put these on, they sound tighter.
Yeah. And so I guess feel is a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
Then, for players.
Yeah, because there's probably a limit to how much bending how much
Right.
stiffness they want to have.
I've talked to guitar players who I've seen more than one guitar player say, I like to fight my guitar. Have you heard that term?
Absolutely. I've used that term.
Oh,
I've used that term.
Good company.
Like it to fight a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously all this is subjective, right?
Absolutely.
It's different opinions. Different people play different ways. I mean, I was just got to jam with Jared James Nichols, who's a up and coming
player.
Great player.
Yeah.
But he plays with all fingers, no picks, He makes quite the guitar face. But, I'm sure he has a different opinion because he plays with his fingers and a different feel than people that are playing with a pick.
Yeah, I'll think about all that. So you got your left hand in terms of how much bending strength you have. You got your right hand, what you're doing there. You're playing with a pick, playing with your fingers, and then you got the scale length of the instrument.
Right.
So all of those things, it's like a little ecosystem of variables, and it's all very personal.
Do you think heavier gauges stay in tune better?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with a string
They're
like
just
this,
tighter, right?
they don't move as much. They don't stretch as much, right?
Yeah.
Especially once you get them settled. These strings in particular, these NYXL, stay in tune really well.
Everything I did, just when I was just kind of, my guitar store licks, all of it, the whole thing feels different. Just a lot tighter. And I've tried 11s, you experiment. I've put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours on 10s.
Yep.
And maybe 15 hours on 11s. So I'm definitely not used to it, but I mean, you can just, you have to have more strength, but there's something about the density that I feel does sound different. For the record, since we weren't rolling when I restrung this,
Yep.
I just went to I literally put the strings on.
You did a little bending and to tweak them up.
I stretched them one time.
Yep.
Tuned it up.
Yep.
We just jammed, no cuts, and then I just checked the tuner again, and it barely needed any adjustments.
That's cool.
Way more in tune than the 10s. So that's just good to know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it with no amp, just to feel the vibrations. Yep. It's funny because just the extra thickness tricks my brain. So I'm not sure if it's sounding different because it feels different.
Yeah.
So there's a tactile difference. But I would say the vibrations feel stronger.
So it'll be interesting. After this, we'll put some 9s on.
Yeah, so we're gonna go from 11s to the 9s.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
9s, I always feel kind of like a superhero.
Yeah.
Like Superman bending the steel bar. It's like, whoa, loosey-goosey over here. So we'll try that. All right, so we just put 9s now. A big difference to the 11s. And I'm just gonna play it with no volume here. Now, if I was blindfolded and you had this exact guitar with the 11s on it, and then this guitar, I would say they were different guitars. And you didn't tell me the string gauges were different.
Right.
I mean, it's way less resonant.
Yeah, for
way less. I mean, I wasn't sure it was going to be that drastic, but it is very drastic how less vibration there is.
The strings are vibrating a lot, but they're less controlled. right? So
Right.
it's a little messier sounding,
That's
like a
what it
little
feels like, too.
kind of mushy, you know, bright.
So, talk about a couple of the legends that used lighter gauge as opposed to a, you know, Malcolm Young maybe using thicker strings, obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan using thicker strings, but maybe like a Jimmy Page
Yeah,
use lighter.
yeah. We talked. I mean, obviously, Page is one of the most influential. And if you watch, I think we were one time we were talking about Song Remains the Same. You watch him in Song Remains the Same, and he's just up and down the fingerboard. I can remember as a kid being blown away by that. And he's using really light strings, and it allows him to do that, right? Low action, light strings, bend easy, play fast. If that's what you're into and that's your technique, you might want to play lighter gauge strings. You know, it's not all about so much of the tone is in your fingers. You know, it's not always in the strings. So it really comes down to comfortability and playability and strength and what you're looking to do, you know?
All right, so I'm going to play this some more with volume now.
All right.
See what we get. In the A zone.
See, that's the thing. You're having fun there. Like,
Yeah.
It's fun to play with light gauge strings,
No,
right?
I describe it like, you know, especially going from 11s to 9s, you know, it's like doing exercise with ankle weights on, and you take ankle weights on, you're
Then
like,
you can run.
"Whoa,
Exactly.
man." Yeah, I mean, it's just feels very, very different. But I will say this, specifically those perfect fifth power chords, and then especially when I did this. That feels way better with 11s, and I feel like it sounds better. But then when you're going into the more like you're talking about, you know, you could definitely get away with more with the lighter strings. But there are already certain things I liked the feel and sound better on the 11s. Like that sounds better with 11s.
Yeah.
That just sounds a little weaker and a little like messier. Like I think that's one of the descriptions you were using.
But it still sounded like you when you're playing that rock and roll riff. It sounded like you doing what you were doing.
The guy with the hat on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I also feel like, I mean, it's in tune, but not quite as strongly in tune after a little jam than the 11s as well. And the Les Paul is a shorter scale neck, so no matter what gauge strings, with the shorter scale neck, it's a little easier to bend than a long scale like a Strat.
Yep.
Yep.
For sure.
Brian Vance of D'Addario. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yeah, man. That was been
really
fun. This has been really fun to have you here.
My conclusion, especially like really doing the shootout, is the thicker strings, that tighter feel definitely has a tighter sound too. There's a correlation with that feel, that tightness, but also the sound coming out. And when I was playing power chords and like that heavy rhythm, AC/DC blues rock kind of rhythm, I liked the way it sounded more. When it came to, you know, blazing licks and just feeling like I'm not having to struggle as hard with the bends and everything, you know, the lighter gauge felt better. So to me, that means that I have probably, for my own taste, have probably been doing the right thing with 10s, because I'm getting a little.
That's what I was going to ask.
I think that's right. Now, if it comes time to do something in the studio and I want to specifically do a rhythm part, it might be kind of fun to put the thicker strings on for that.
Yeah.
Just to try.
I like the acoustic comparisons too, because basically what you hear acoustically is a lot of what comes out of the guitar, you know, one way or another. So you're getting that fuller, the tighter, more direct sound with the heavier strings, and then a little more jangly and a little, you know, a little more fun, like a little looser.
Definitely.
You know, the whole vibe to it is a lot different. So I think you're doing the right thing. Stay with the 10s because that's kind of get you in the middle of the both of those
and
things,
I mean, it's definitely feels fun with the 9s.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it feels
you're
like,
having fun. I can see you having fun.
It feels like my hands are stronger. But it wouldn't be fair to you, Brian, to end this video without you playing a bit, because you're a fantastic guitar player, and you know I don't want the audience out there to not know that.
Oh,
so
wow.
you
Okay.
want to play us out?
All right. I'll stay in the A zone.
Please,
All right.
please.
I'll keep it in the A zone.
All right.
Now, this could be interesting because I don't play 9s on my Les Paul.
Well, let's see what happens.
Ooh, I haven't done this since I was a kid, probably. I haven't played 9s in a long. This is great.